Okay, we're going to begin with the bass drum. I'm going to show you how to set it up, how to put the heads on. This is a standard size bass drum. It's a 22-inch in diameter. That's from here to here. And we already have one head attached. I wanted to take you through this as quickly as we can. And once you've seen one head put on, you'll understand how to put other heads on the other drums. This first head has a muffling ring on the inside because the drum gets kind of boomy without it. And we can also put in some other muffling materials like a pillow. A pillow works really well. And we'll take our drum head and fit it down over this part. This is called the shell. Put the head on, and then we'll attach this, which we call the hoop. Sometimes it's called a counter hoop. Now from there, we have to attach these. These are called tension rods, and they attach to this part on the shell, which is called a tension casing. So we'll begin by placing this part of the tension rod, which is called the claw, on the hoop, and we'll insert and just get it started threaded and spin it down by hand. We have 8 of these to put on. So we'll go through it one by one. The bass drum is the largest drum in the set, and it has the lowest pitch, which is why it's called a bass drum. And it's played with a pedal, which I'll show you how we attach that once we get the head on. Right now, we're not really tuning this head. We're just getting it attached for tuning later on. Now, these last 2 tension rods are special. They don't have this piece. These could be attached with a key, and the reason for that is this is the part that sits on the floor, and it works really well. We don't have that T-handle in the way. Okay, so now we have all of our tension rods attached, and I'm going to go now and try to get them equal all the way around. We're not going to actually do any real tuning. We're just going to get them to the point where they're about equal, and then we're going to go ahead and put a little bit more, a twist or 2, and we can use the key on this one that sits on the floor. I'll try to get them equal all the way around. After a while, you begin to develop a touch for that. But like I said, we're not really tuning right now. We're just getting the head seated. So now, we've got the head in place, and we'll go on to talking about some of the other important parts on the bass drum. Beginning right here, this is the tom-tom mount. This is where we would attach the tom-toms, and we'll do that a little later. And these are called spurs. The spurs attach right here on the bass drum. For now, we're going to put them all the way in. There's one on each side. And the purpose of the spurs is that it keeps the drum from sliding forward when you play it. Now, what we're going to do with the spurs is We're going to tilt the drum back a little bit so the front hoop is not touching the ground. And we're going to release this spur so that it does touch. And then we're going to release the opposite spur. And we want to get it pretty much level. And if we keep the front head off the ground, we get a little better resonance when we play it. Okay, that looks like it's pretty good. Now, we're going to go to this front head. This is the playing head. And we're going to take our pedal. Before we attach the bass drum pedal, we're going to put this plastic insert right on the hoop. This will give the pedal something to grab onto. And this is a bass drum pedal. This part is called the footboard. This is where your foot rests. This is called the beater, and this is what strikes the head. And as you can see, the footboard pulls the beater down, and it's attached by this chain. It also has these springs which adjust the tension on the footboard. What I like to do is keep it at a moderate tension, and that can be controlled with this knob right here, and the spring attaches with this hoop right here. And there's one on the other side that does the same thing. And I think it's a good idea to keep them both adjusted with a medium tension. And now we'll go ahead and attach this to the hoop. Sometimes it takes a little finessing. And tighten on the wing nut. And we're in business. And just to demonstrate, the beater, once you press on the footboard, will strike the head pretty much in the center. I like to keep some kind of protective adhesive, like this is a black tape. You can use an adhesive pad. That'll protect the head from wear. Though this is a very thick head, it's a double ply head, which I also like. I like a deeper sound on my bass drum. And we'll show you what that sounds like. And now, with the bass drum ready to go, we're going to show you how you would sit. So I'll bring my seat in. And the seat should be adjusted so that you're not sitting too high or too low. You should have about a 90-degree bend in your knees. And what you want to do is sit right up at the edge of the seat. This will increase the power that you have to your legs and your feet. And we'll keep our foot right on the footboard. We let the heel of the foot rest and use your ankle just to push the pedal down and strike the head and let it bounce off. If you really need a loud sound, then you can actually use your whole leg and you'll lift your heel when you play. Now that covers the bass drum setup. I'm going to take you to the snare drum next and we'll go through that. Next comes the snare drum. The snare drum is really the special, unique drum in the set. It has on the bottom head, which we call the snare head, a set of wire snares. And these are what give the snare drum that crispy sound that it has. And the snares attach to this piece right here, which is called the snare strainer. And the snare strainer can either be in the on or off position. Right now, it's in the off position, and the snares will usually hang just a little bit below the snare head when it's off. When you flip it on, it pulls the snares up tight against that bottom head, which we call the snare head, and it gives it that crispy sound that you'll hear once we get this all together. You can also adjust the tension of the snares with this knob right here, which is part of the snare strainer. You'll notice it's got a top and a bottom hoop. The top hoop I'll be putting on in a minute. And it has tension casings just like the bass drum did. The tension casings attach to the shell, and this snare drum shell is made of metal, and they attach to the shell with a screw right here. Sometimes you'll find that when the tension casing, if it's defective or if the thread has gone bad, the whole tension casing can easily be changed just by removing these screws and putting a whole new tension casing in. That's very easy to do. So now we'll attach it to the snare drum stand, and it should sit pretty much right where it is, in a comfortable position between your legs. And I put the snare strainer right here, right in front, because I want to be able to get to that very easily to flip it on or off. Now we're going to seat the snare drum on the stand, so we have to adjust these stand arms so that they fit the drum. And then there's a wing nut which will hold those arms in place once you have them in place. This is a 14-inch snare drum, and it's 5.5 inches deep, and it's got a 14-inch head, which we'll put on just like this. And we put the hoop on top, just like we did with the bass drum. And it has tension rods, also like the bass drum did. So now we'll begin to put the tension rods in like this.